You feel it before you understand it. She didn't disappear, but something shifted, and that quiet change is louder than rejection. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you isn't taught to men, especially not in a world that tells you to chase harder when a woman pulls away. When a woman creates distance but still does very specific things, it isn't confusion. It's not games. It's emotional attachment trying to protect itself. Most men panic at this moment. They text more. They explain themselves. They try to be better. And without realizing it, they destroy the very bond they're desperate to keep. Here's the uncomfortable truth. When a woman is emotionally unattached, she leaves cleanly. Her silence is cold. Her absence is final. There are no signals, no contradictions, no lingering warmth. She doesn't check your stories. She doesn't circle back. She doesn't test the ground to see if you're still there. Detachment is simple. Attachment is messy. So when she pulls away but still does something that keeps you present in her emotional space, that's not indifference. That's internal conflict. It's the moment where desire and fear collide. And women don't pull away because they feel nothing. They pull away because they feel too much and don't yet trust the outcome. You were taught that interest looks like consistency. Good morning texts, immediate replies, constant reassurance. That's only true in the early surface stages. Deeper attraction behaves differently. It becomes cautious, protective, selective, especially when a woman senses she's losing emotional control. A woman who is not attached doesn't worry about losing you. A woman who is attached starts measuring risk. She watches her investment. She tests your emotional strength without announcing that's what she's doing. And yes, she may step back, not to escape you, but to see if you collapse without her presence. This is where most men fail. They mistake distance for disinterest and respond with anxiety. They try to pull her back into comfort, but comfort isn't what she's seeking. She's seeking certainty about who you are when she is not feeding you validation. If she still responds, but slower. If she stops initiating, but doesn't disappear. If she becomes less available, yet emotionally reactive to your absence. If she watches, listens, notices, remembers, then you are not dealing with a woman who is done. You are dealing with a woman who is attached and afraid of how deeply. Women don't detach by pulling away slowly. They detach by turning cold. The slow pullback is a recalibration. She's asking a silent question. Is this man stable without my constant presence, or does he unravel? Your job in this moment is not to chase answers. It's not to confront her with emotional pressure. It's not to demand clarity. Your job is to remain grounded, consistent, and emotionally self-contained, because nothing reveals a man's true value faster than how he handles perceived loss. Attachment grows where there is safety, and safety is not reassurance. Safety is strength without force, calm without control, confidence without entitlement. If you understand this, you stop reacting emotionally and start responding strategically. And once you do that, the dynamic changes quietly but permanently. When she pulls away but still leaves a thread connected, what she is really doing is watching your emotional posture, not your words, not your promises, your posture. This is where female psychology diverges sharply from what men are taught to expect. Men look for logic. Women look for emotional consistency under pressure, and distance is pressure. A woman who feels herself becoming emotionally attached begins to test the environment. Not consciously, not maliciously, but instinctively. Her nervous system asks a simple question. Is this man solid, or is he only strong when I'm close? So she steps back. She reduces access. She withholds the reassurance she once gave freely, and then she observes. Most men respond by trying to restore the old dynamic. They increase effort. They over-communicate. They ask what changed. They explain their intentions. They try to lock certainty back into place. And in doing so, they fail the test without ever knowing one was happening. Because emotional attachment does not grow toward what feels needy, reactive, or dependent. It grows toward what feels anchored. When she pulls away and you remain centered, something important happens inside her. Her anxiety transfers. She begins to wonder instead of you. She feels the absence instead of controlling it. This is why she may still like your posts, still view your stories, still ask indirect questions through conversation, still show subtle jealousy when other women appear in your orbit. These are not random behaviors. They are emotional check-ins. She is measuring whether you are still emotionally available without being emotionally desperate. Here's what men misunderstand. A woman pulling away does not want you to chase her. She wants to know if you can hold your ground without her having to manage your emotions. If your mood collapses when she creates space, she learns she carries the emotional weight of the connection. And that kills desire quietly, even if affection remains. If, instead, you remain composed, engaged with your own life, warm but not overreaching, something flips. Her distance no longer feels like control. It feels like loss, and loss is where attachment deepens. This is why silence from a grounded man is different from silence from an insecure one. One feels calm, the other feels heavy. Women sense the difference immediately, even if they can't articulate it. Emotional maturity is not loud. It doesn't demand. It doesn't negotiate attraction. It simply exists. When she pulls away but still reacts emotionally to your absence, still mirrors your energy when you withdraw slightly, still resurfaces when you stop pushing, she is revealing something important. She is not detaching. She is regulating her feelings. And regulation only happens when there is something to regulate. Understand this, and you stop taking her distance personally. You stop framing it as rejection. You stop chasing certainty. Instead, you become the constant, the calm, the reference point she returns to when her emotions settle. This doesn't mean you play games. It means you don't abandon yourself to manage her comfort. You stay kind, you stay open, but you do not overextend to close a gap she intentionally created. A woman who is not attached does not notice your emotional stability. A woman who is attached is drawn to it because stability feels like safety, and safety is what turns emotional attachment into desire that lasts. If you respond correctly here, she doesn't feel chased, she feels chosen, and that distinction changes everything. There's a moment most men miss, and it's the most revealing one of all. It's when she pulls away, you don't chase, and suddenly, she reappears. Not dramatically, not with a confession, but with something small, a message that feels casual, a reaction, a question that doesn't need to be asked. That moment is not accidental. It's emotional gravity testing its pull. When a woman is emotionally attached, distance doesn't erase connection. It amplifies awareness. She becomes more conscious of you, not less. And when you don't fill the silence with anxiety, her mind fills it for you. She starts replaying interactions. She remembers how she felt around you. She wonders why you didn't panic like others before you. And curiosity quietly turns into attachment. This is where your internal discipline matters more than anything you say, because the instinct to reward her return with extra effort is strong. Men think, she's back, now I need to secure this. But emotional attachment isn't secured through acceleration. It's secured through consistency. When you suddenly become more available, more eager, more intense the moment she returns, you undo the very stability that drew her back. A woman who pulls away and then comes back is not looking for fireworks. She's looking for confirmation. Confirmation that you are the same man, whether she is close or distant. That your self-worth doesn't fluctuate based on her attention. That you don't emotionally lean on her to feel grounded. This is why the strongest response is calm warmth. You acknowledge her without overvaluing her return. You engage without interrogating the absence. You stay present without shifting your center. And when you do this, something powerful happens. She relaxes because she no longer feels responsible for your emotional state. Many women have learned, often unconsciously, that closeness comes with emotional labor, that when they pull back, men collapse or become demanding. So when she meets a man who remains steady, her nervous system registers something new: safety without pressure, interest without control, presence without dependency. And here's the deeper layer most men never hear. When a woman feels emotionally attached but unsure, she is watching to see if you will punish her for creating space. Punishment doesn't always look like anger. It can look like coldness, passive withdrawal, subtle resentment, or emotional distance disguised as pride. If she senses that her autonomy costs her emotional safety, she retreats further. But when you allow space without emotional consequence, attachment grows. Because now she knows she can breathe without losing you. And paradoxically, that makes her want to move closer. This is why emotionally strong men don't ask for reassurance. They create an environment where reassurance naturally returns. They don't demand clarity. They become clear through behavior. They don't try to lock a woman in. They make leaving feel unnecessary. When she pulls away but still checks in, still reopens conversation, still responds when you stop pushing, she's not unsure about you. She's unsure about herself around you, about how much she's willing to feel, about what it would mean to invest emotionally. Your steadiness gives her the answer without words. And if you ever wondered why some men seem to have women drift back into their lives effortlessly, this is why. Not because they manipulate, but because they don't destabilize when attachment triggers fear. They let emotions settle instead of chasing them. At this stage, attraction is no longer about impressing her. It's about embodying emotional gravity. And gravity doesn't pull by force. It pulls by presence. When you understand this, you stop trying to win her back. And ironically, that's when she starts moving towards you on her own terms. There is a silent shift that happens when a woman realizes she is emotionally attached to a man who does not chase, punish, or plead. Her behavior begins to change in subtle but unmistakable ways. She becomes more aware of how her actions affect you, even when she pretends not to care. She listens differently. She reads between lines. She becomes sensitive to your tone, your absence, your calm. This is the stage where her pullback no longer feels like distance. It feels like restraint. She isn't moving away to escape. She's holding herself back to stay in control. And the reason is simple. Emotional attachment makes women feel vulnerable before it makes them feel safe. Vulnerability without trust feels dangerous. So she manages it by slowing down, by creating space, by testing emotional boundaries. What most men don't realize is that when a woman starts regulating herself around you, she is already invested. Indifference doesn't require regulation. Emotional attachment does. She thinks before she texts. She debates whether to initiate. She wonders how much to show. That internal dialogue only exists when you matter. At this point, the greatest mistake a man can make is misreading her restraint as lack of interest and trying to force emotional momentum. When you push for more closeness, more definition, more certainty, you signal that you need emotional outcomes to feel secure, and that shifts the emotional weight back onto her. Women are drawn to men who can hold space without needing to fill it, who can allow feelings to unfold naturally instead of trying to control the timeline. When you don't rush her emotional process, you become the place where her feelings feel safe to land. You may notice that she becomes more emotionally responsive even if she remains physically or verbally reserved. She reacts when you pull back slightly. She mirrors your energy when you go quiet. She becomes curious when you stop explaining yourself. These are not coincidences. These are signs that your emotional presence is felt even in your absence. This is also where many men sabotage themselves with false confidence. They confuse emotional steadiness with emotional unavailability. They become distant to prove strength. They withhold warmth to regain control. But emotional maturity is not coldness. It's availability without neediness. Warmth without attachment to outcome. A woman who is emotionally attached does not want to feel managed. She wants to feel met. And being met emotionally means you don't overreact to her fluctuations. You don't mirror her distance with punishment. You don't withdraw affection to make a point. You stay consistent, respectful, and self-directed. Consistency is deeply attractive because it removes fear. When she knows your emotional state isn't fragile, she can explore her own feelings more honestly. She no longer has to protect you from disappointment or manage your expectations. That freedom allows attachment to deepen instead of retreat. And here's the part no one tells men. When a woman pulls away but senses that you are still grounded, still engaged in your life, still emotionally present without pressure, she begins to imagine a future with emotional stability. Not drama, not intensity, stability. And stability is what turns emotional attachment into long-term desire. This is why she may start opening up unexpectedly, sharing personal thoughts, asking deeper questions, showing concern for your well-being. These are emotional bids, not loud ones, quiet ones, and how you receive them matters. If you stay relaxed, attentive, and unneedy, she feels safe leaning in. If you jump too quickly, she feels overwhelmed. The balance is subtle but powerful. When you understand this stage, you stop reacting to her distance and start responding to her emotional signals. And when that happens, the pullback phase ends not with a dramatic reunion, but with something stronger: mutual emotional alignment. Because attachment doesn't lock in with force, it settles in where there is calm strength. By the time a woman pulls away, regulates herself, and then slowly starts leaning back in, the outcome is no longer decided by her feelings alone. It is decided by who you remained while she was uncertain. This is the part men rarely hear, because it removes fantasy and replaces it with responsibility. Emotional attachment does not bind a woman to you. Your emotional leadership does. When she senses that you are unchanged by her fluctuations, something locks into place inside her. Not excitement, not obsession, respect. And respect is what allows attraction to endure past emotion. Feelings rise and fall. Respect stabilizes them. A woman who becomes emotionally attached to a man who does not chase learns something powerful. She learns that closeness with you does not cost her freedom. That intimacy does not require her to manage your insecurity. That distance does not trigger punishment. And once she understands that, she no longer needs to pull away to protect herself. This is where many men misinterpret the outcome. They think the goal is to make her come back fast, confess feelings, or close the gap dramatically. But the real shift happens quietly. She begins to include you in her emotional future without announcing it. She becomes more consistent, more open, more grounded around you. The push-pull fades because there is nothing left to regulate. Attraction matures here. It stops being about intensity and starts being about trust. Trust in your emotional stability. Trust in your boundaries. Trust that you will not collapse, cling, or disappear when things become real. And here is the final truth you were never told. A woman does not commit emotionally when she feels chased. She commits when she feels safe choosing. Choice is essential to desire. When you remove pressure, you return her agency. And when a woman chooses you freely, attachment becomes loyalty. This is why emotionally strong men do not fear pullbacks. They don't rush to fix them. They don't personalize them. They understand that emotional depth often triggers fear before it triggers closeness. And they allow that process without losing themselves. If she pulls away and you remain grounded, you teach her how to stay. Not through words, through presence, through restraint, through self-respect. This doesn't mean every woman will come back, and that's important. Because your strength is not measured by whether she returns. It's measured by whether you stay aligned with who you are, regardless of outcome. And ironically, that alignment is what makes you attractive to the women who are capable of healthy attachment. So the next time a woman creates space but doesn't disappear, don't rush to interpret it. Observe her actions. Notice whether she still orbits emotionally, whether she reacts to your absence, whether she returns when you stop pushing. These are not signs of disinterest. They are signs of emotional investment, navigating fear. And your role is simple, but not easy. Stay calm. Stay purposeful. Stay emotionally self-contained. Let her feelings move without trying to manage them. Let the connection breathe. Because when a woman feels emotionally attached to a man who trusts himself enough not to chase, she doesn't just come closer. She stays differently. Now let me ask you something personal, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments. When someone pulls away in your life, do you lose yourself trying to hold them, or do you stay grounded and let them choose? If this message challenged the way you see relationships, hit the like button so more men hear this truth. Subscribe for deeper insight into female psychology and emotional mastery, and share this video with a man who needs to hear this before he loses himself trying to keep someone else.